as we get started with today's event, Jen, event automation is one of those things that's incredibly important. So if we can just go through a couple of things for our replay folks. First, the thing to understand when you're setting up your events is you need to know what your goal is and who your audience is. And so as you connect, think about what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's important for you and your business. It's probably related to something inside of the lead generation or the revenue stream of your business. So think about your business reasoning and what you're doing as a business, and make sure that your event strategy matches getting more business. Having an event just for having an event isn't necessarily going to be helpful. You need to know your audience. Make My Persona is a great tool to use inside of that. And understanding how you'll measure success is incredibly important as well. We're going to talk at the end about some reporting options and ideas. And so make sure that you've got that under control so that you know if you're successful. If you're not measuring, you're not marketing. Remember how to follow up with your leads. HubSpot makes that incredibly helpful and easy. And make sure that you're choosing the right platforms. Common platforms, of course, are Zoom. We have GoToWebinar. There's tools like Bevy. A lot of things integrate with HubSpot, but choosing the right tool and testing it prior to your first event is incredibly important.
All right, so for step one, kind of like what we were talking about, we want to make sure to get organized. Let's get everything in one place prior to having to, go through making all of these assets that we're going to have to make for automating our event. So you want to have the details handy. You want a short and long description. You want to make sure you have your bios of the presenters, their contact info, of course, the date, time, venue information. If it's a webinar, we want to create that on Zoom or go to meetings so that we have the links for it. Also, if you need a calendar link, you can go to Add Event and create that. So since HubSpot doesn't have that natively, we can put that then on buttons for emails and things like that once people register. Also, CTA for after the event. Let's get all of that prepared as well so that we can create our thank you email and send people there right away. You also want to know what you want to capture in your CRM. So lead source is primo for a marketer. Original source is going to tell you how people got to your website. Lead source, maybe they were a networking contact. Maybe you want to mark that they came to a webinar first. Also, let's keep track of how many events they're attending. Make that a multi-check box so that we can say, oh, they've been to 6 of our events. They must be pretty interested in what we have to say. Any contact or company demographics that you want. Also, any questions for the presenters in advance, just in case that, we want to, have some more fodder to work with, make sure we're answering our clients' questions. That's always really important. We also want to create those properties in HubSpot so that we can use them on forms. Forms on questions, and just rename it for every form that you have. So like, for example, this is called event question. So for today, how are you handling your event automation currently? That would have been a great question we could have asked all of you. So having a question like that, now please note, as people, if they fill out the form more than once, it will overwrite. But it's going to be current for when you kind of download your submissions and get that information before the presentation. Another couple things you can do if you want to, we could hide and preset fields as well. So for example, if we want to mark lead source on this form, if I click on the field, I can just toggle this button to make it hidden. So then people filling out the form won't see it. I can also say, that this is an event registration if I want to. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this because if people already have it filled in, you might want that original lead source so that, it doesn't automatically fill in. But you could do this for, which event they're attending. If you have different forms on different landing pages, you could do that. If you have one form on multiple landing pages, you might not want to. Another thing that you can do is in the create new section, if your form is kind of long, like for example, if you're getting their name, but maybe then guest names also, you could break up the form by adding text in it if you want to. So I could up here add header text and just say your information. And then if I wanted to down below, I could, oh, if it would stick, I could say, you know, guest information. Then it just kind of breaks up the form and gives it a little bit of, you know, nuance. Now there is a beta coming out for some form information that we saw yesterday. You're going to be able to do multi-panel forms coming soon. So there's a beta out there now. I think it's a private beta, but I think it's going to go into public beta pretty soon. So make sure to watch your product updates section for that.
Jenna asks, should I make a new form for each event or use the same form for all events?
From someone who cleans up databases, I would love it if you would use one form. The key to using one form is that you have to have it either on different landing pages so that you can refine your workflow and your emails. If you're putting your form on an external website that's not a HubSpot website, for example, WordPress or something like that, you will have to do individual forms for that. Great question, Jenna.
Oh, we had another follow-up question anonymously. What's a multi-panel form?
Oh, a multi-panel form. Multi-panel forms are where you would see one screen with a few questions. It would have a progress bar on the bottom. And when you hit next, it brings up another screen that would have another question or two. You're going to be able to do those very soon in HubSpot. They were just demoing it yesterday at the Admin Hug, which is something everybody should subscribe to. On your the options for the form, you know, we want to make sure that we have a good thank you message. You can send them to another URL or something like that if you'd like to. I don't see the need for a thank you page redirect for an event form. You know, just I think putting a message in just so they know that the form has been submitted is enough. You can also do, there's been some additions here down below. You can now set lifecycle stage right here if you want to from the form. Know that if you do set the lifecycle stage, it will never set it backwards. So if somebody's a customer and you have this set to MQL, it's not going to go backwards to MQL. They'll just stay at customer. So don't worry about that. You can send the submissions to the contact owner. That's been there for a while, which is kind of nice so that your, you know, account managers can know who of their clients are coming to what. You can also send submission notifications to multiple people if you want. Add them to campaign, of course. And then one thing that always kind of, you know, stops people up is this always create contact for new email address. If it's a new email address to your system, a new contact will always be created. But if you toggle this switch, it won't pre-populate the fields with known values. I would rather give my clients the ease of having half of it filled in if possible, than because they're going to be created new if they're not in the database. So those are a couple of the things that I would recommend for that. Also, this is a non-marketing contacts hub. If you have marketing contacts in your hub, there will also be a toggle switch here to say, if people fill out this form, automatically make them a marketing contact. So you can control your marketing contacts based on forms now as well. All right, that's what I was going to cover on forms. Any questions?
Looks like we're good for now.
All right, well, let's get back to the show. All right, next, of course, we have to create the event page on our site. Now, you can do a landing page. This is a landing page that we used to do from one of our old webinars. We actually use HubDB on our CMS website right now. So, but I mean, you want to make sure that you have a good description. Tell them why they want to come. What's the benefit to it? HubSpot landing pages, if you use those, they are drag and drop, very, very easy to manipulate. I made one for today's presentation in about 15 minutes. And you can just add the form to your page and kind of go. If you also want to create your CTA page in advance, then as you create the other assets that you're going to have in your workflow and everything, all of your pages are built, you know where to point people, you have all your URLs in one place, and you're good to go. Other website options, if you create an embedded form, you can put it on a HubSpot page. You could use HubDB, which is what this image is. That's how we do our event calendar right now, is with HubDB on our CMS website. Those are very easy to, kind of set up and manipulate. They're great to be used for blogs if you want. You can use them for job postings. You can use them for multiple different things. So maybe another time we'll go into HubDB. Also, you can embed your HubSpot form on your existing website. So if it's WordPress or anything, you'll get an embed code. You can put it right on your website, and then anybody who fills it out, the data goes right into HubSpot. All right, next, of course, we want to create the emails. This is the tedious part of setting up events, is creating all the assets. We always recommend 4 emails. You want your confirmation email, a 2-day reminder, a 1 to 2 hour reminder if it's a webinar, or a 2 to 4 hour reminder if it's in person. It's really up to you how long of it really depends on your audience, what time frame you want to do for that last one. Being that we typically do a 1 hour reminder for a webinar and a 2 hour reminder for in person, just because our target market is business professionals. So they're typically on their email and things like that. We have clients who work with seniors and things like that. We might want to give them a little bit longer reminder window because they might not be on their emails all the time. You also want to create a thank you email with a call to action. Let's give everybody something of value with your webinar, a download, a checklist, a template of some kind, links to blogs, links to other webinars, or other events that you're going to have. Always good to keep them coming back for more so they can learn more from you, establish yourself as that subject matter expert. So to create the emails, as you all know, the email is drag and drop. If you're not using the drag and drop option, please start using the drag and drop option. Hard coding emails is kind of what people used to do in yesteryear, and there ends up being so many templates because they have to be hard coded for that specific thing. The drag and drop emails, your emails shouldn't be very long for your events. It's really just the one that's pictured here on the left, that's a confirmation email. We're excited to see you at the webinar. Here's all the details. Here's who's going to be there. Doesn't need to be any more than that. But give an option for ways to communicate with the people who are holding it. I can't tell you how many times people have contacted me from these emails just saying, I can't make it, can I get a recording? Or something like that. Also, if you're using, this is for a webinar, you can have your Zoom information on this if you don't need to have the registrations in Zoom. If you don't do that, like for example, if we're not requiring registration in Zoom, then we won't know who's there. They won't tell us the names of the attendees. We could get to that information. We have to do a little more digging, but I'll show you a way that you can require registration and have that automated just from your HubSpot form as well. Also, you'll see that there's a calendar link in there. HubSpot doesn't do calendar links, so we do recommend Add Event. I will show you Add Event in just a little bit. Basically, it gives you an event calendar, and you can put in all of your information like you would for a meeting. It will give you a link, and then it'll be an add link for people's calendars, which is really nice. For your thank you email, this is the one that we did from the hug that we did last time. So your takeaways, your content strategy, what's next, come to our next event. It doesn't have to be real long, but you definitely want to thank people for coming and, give them some information and some benefit for coming.
Jen, have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
John asks, can you add a fillable form into an email so someone could fill it out within that email, or does it need to be on a landing page?
It needs to be on a landing page.
Okay.
It does.
And then Dan from Plymouth asks, should you broadcast events live on YouTube?
I will let you answer that question.
Sure. So we do this with our busy webinars, for example. And to be completely frank, it's not really a requirement. It's kind of one of the things that we use because it comes free with with Zoom webinars, where you can broadcast or simulcast out to YouTube. So I don't have to reload that video into YouTube after we're done. And I can just set it as a unlisted page and then send it back to participants to revisit later. So if you have a huge YouTube following, it might be helpful, especially if the entire point is to get as many people as possible on it. But that kind of removes the gate or the opportunity for you to get their information. So you need to figure out another way to get that connection if you have an open YouTube video that anyone can visit. One more follow-up before we go on. What's a multi-panel? Oh, no, we already did that one. Sorry.
Yes, we did that one.
Yep.
All right. The next step is to create your workflow and your automation. Of course, this is what HubSpot is known for. Their marketing workflows are fantastic. All you want to do is go to automation workflows. It might just say workflows up in your upper nav, depending on if you have other hubs or not. Create your workflow. It'll be contact based, and it'll just do a blank one from scratch. The enrollment trigger is going to be your form submission. So I'm going to present, I'm going to show you the event workflow. I'll make this a little bigger because we're not all as young as we used to be. So my enrollment trigger is a form submission, the event form on the landing page. Now, one of the nice things about doing this is, see, I have the one form. I can refine, since I'm using HubSpot landing pages, which landing page it's filled out on. So for example, if I use my event form on the January, February, March, and April events, I can, for this workflow, just look at the January event if I want to, or the February event, so that I don't get people enrolling from everywhere. Now, on an external website, on a WordPress website, or a different kind of website, you would have to do an individual form for each one. I also don't want to turn on re-enrollment triggers. I don't want that turned on because if people fill out the form 12 times, they're going to get 12 confirmation emails and all of that kind of thing. We don't want to annoy people. If they're registered, they're registered. Now, if you have your GDPR or CCA or CCPA turned on in HubSpot, you want to make sure that you set the legitimate or the legal basis for processing contacts data first, because otherwise you're not going to be able to email anybody. So also, this is a great place to add, set as a marketing contact as well, just in case they're not. If they're already in your database or you forgot to put that on your form, you want to make sure that that's in here as well. Otherwise, they're not going to get all the confirmation emails and reminders. Then we send our email. We can have, what I do is I create 4 emails for each one. The confirmation email, of course, would be the first. Let's just let them know so they can get it on their calendar right away. Then I go down and I mark some fields. I kind of look at, I want to make sure that I'm capturing data and setting data, especially if I don't know these people. They're not in my database yet. So if we don't have a contact owner for this person, I can then rotate it between people on my sales team if I want to, or maybe people on my account management team. If there is a contact owner, I'm just going to skip that. I'm going to go to the next action. I want to make sure to get them on my email list for more events because they're interested in this one. So let's make sure that we start telling them of other ones that we have. Also, lead source, we don't want to remarket necessarily, like I said before when we were talking about forms. So if we don't know lead source, then let's mark it as an event registration or webinar or whatever you want to call it. If it is marked, then we can skip to the next one. You can set life cycle stage if you want. One thing that I would recommend is setting all we have to do is click the plus sign, go down here to set property value. Let's set events registered for so that we know we want to append it to current values. Ideally, this is a multi-checkbox field, and then we can set which event they were going to and save that. That's how you would add an action in there. Like I said before, it's great to know in your database, has this contact been to one webinar? Have they been to 6 webinars or any other event that you've had? Let's see how engaged they are. That really helps the sales team as they go to call people. Then I'm going to put a delay in here. I don't need to contact these people until my 2-day reminder now. So 2 days in advance, I'm going to put in a delay to send the 2-day reminder. Now you'll know that there's a branch here, or notice that there's a branch here. This branch is set the delay. It's going to ask you, and I'll show you how this works. If you set the delay, you can say it's going to be on a calendar date. See this pro tip box? You can set the date and time that you want to delay it until. But if somebody registers 1 day in advance, do they need to get the 2-day reminder? That will have gone out prior to them registering. So this, if you check this box to add a branch, it will just skip that for people who are registering late or something like that. It'll bring them to the appropriate place in the workflow. So I'm going to send out my 2-day reminder, and then I'm going to wait until 1 hour before the webinar and send out a 1-hour reminder. You'll notice there's another delay in here for after the assigned date. So if somebody registered 30 minutes in advance, you know who you are. It was probably delayed until you got you'll get a thank you after this. So that's kind of how I would set up those workflows. You don't need to worry about really anything in settings and notifications other than assigning it to a campaign. It's great to see how your webinars or events are working for you. And then you can just review and publish. Ideally, you do this right away so that you don't forget and get this done so that everything works together. Now, I mentioned before that, you can do a Zoom integration with this. So with the Zoom integration, one of the things that you want to make sure is that you're going to have to require registration to be able to use it within and add people to the webinar from within a workflow. So right here where it says registration required, we want to make sure that that box is checked. All right. And then what we're going to have to do is we have to grab the webinar ID. So I have to save it to see that. And I need to grab this number, the 834 number. Where did it go? I have to grab that number. And I can come back to the workflow. And after I send out my confirmation email, I could just add an action. And you'll see down here in connected apps, I can add it to Zoom. And I want to add the contact to a Zoom webinar. So in this webinar field, I can paste in that webinar ID number. And then it's only going to bring over 3 fields: first name, last name, email, over into Zoom. What will happen there is it's going to take the information from your form. It's automatically going to populate Zoom. Now, if you do this, you don't need to send your reminder emails because Zoom can send out the reminder emails and everybody will get a unique link to join the webinar. That's how you know who attends if that's important to your business. I click save, and then that is right here. It works the same way with GoToMeeting, and I'm not familiar with how Microsoft Teams works from a webinar standpoint, but the two primary ones are Zoom Webinar and GoToMeeting. They both work the same. Then you can get stats also out of Zoom. And that information, if you do a Zoom webinar or a GoToMeeting webinar, will also populate at the contact record. All right, I probably have questions from all of this.
You do, actually. James is like a step back from the automations, but he asked, how much do you set your own lead source versus using HubSpot source dropdown and filled source leads, original source and latest source, right, versus their expanded detail properties?
So original source is great if you want to know how people got to your website, how they got to filling out the form. That is a really great field. Original source is going to be how they got there first. Latest source is going to be their most recent conversion and where they came from. If it was pay-per-click, if it was, search, email, et cetera, et cetera. I like to have a lead source field as well that the team can manipulate because, for example, this happens all the time. We will market with it came from a webinar, and my sales team will say, well, I've been talking to that person at networking meetings for the last 2 years, so it's not really from marketing. So being able to have a lead source where you can toggle that that's why I recommend to have it. Hope that makes sense.
For sure, it does. And then Lori is actually teasing something that's coming up. Can you add this event to your calendar on a landing page as a link, and how do you do that? So we'll get to that in just a minute, Lori.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
That's good for now.
Well, since she asked the question, I will bring up Ad Event also. So Ad Event is a program. They do have multiple different tiers that you can do. Honestly, you can do 9 events for free on their hobby plan. Even if you're a business, they don't really check. We will send you links out to Ad Event in our thank you email if you're interested in that. It will give you an events calendar. You can link people to this calendar if you don't have one on your website. But the nice part about it is that I can go in here and I can add all of the information for my event. So you can have a description. If you're not requiring registration, you can have the Zoom link and the passcode, say the location, everything that you would do on a typical meeting. And then if you, of course, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to forget where it is now. Save. Oh, here you go. So they will give you either you can copy this and put it into your email. It doesn't copy super clean into the email, but right here you can copy this and you can add it to any button. You can add it to your landing page. You can add, to anywhere you want. It works really well. If you change event times within this, it will automatically change them. Like, for example, if you have a weather event or something and have to bump it a day, it will automatically change it on everybody's calendar. So, big fan of Ad Event.
And we're not sponsors. We're just fans.
We're also a client.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back to the show. As discussed, now one of the things that we do have as a follow-up, our CTA for this event, is going to be the webinar template that I just went through. So you can download what that template is if you would like, and be able to kind of copy it, because we believe copying is the finest form of flattery. Next, Dave, how are we going to promote the event? Because you can build it, but if you build it, they won't necessarily come. So we got to tell people that it's out there.
Yeah. So Jen, you already kind of talked about this a little bit, and there's some things that you can do inside of automation, but email is absolutely your best friend inside of your existing audience and anyone that you already know. So making sure that you're giving people the opportunity to subscribe or to register for this event is going to be incredibly powerful. And a lot of people overlook this. We focus a lot on social media and advertising in public events, but don't forget your existing audience and the people that you need to connect with. You also need to temper that, of course, with not spamming people. So we have a monthly events email that we send that includes links to all of our events. Sometimes that's too much choice and we get lost in obscurity of all of the links, but you have to balance that between how active you are with your connections. Social media, of course, is incredibly powerful and helpful if you're trying to connect with corporate folks. Everybody knows this, but LinkedIn is a really good opportunity for people that are in that space in the networking world. If you're trying to reach younger audiences, you might want to consider a TikTok or a Snapchat. Having the kind of middle range or the millennials and older our audience is probably a Facebook play or an Instagram play, but making sure that you're giving people short bursts with a very clear call to action inside of any social media post is going to be helpful. Putting out entire videos or things that are, like a 15-minute video with one call to action at the end is probably not going to get you all that much. So if you do have, ads or content in video, you want to have the call to action right away, remind them in the middle, and then send it or have it again at the end, and include that in the meta information or descriptions in the links, descriptions in YouTube, the tags in TikTok, whatever you have. Pay-per-click advertising, of course, is something that you can control and that you can leverage. Just make sure that you're being very clear in your ad copy, and your landing page should be as clear of debris as possible. What you're trying to do is make sure that every nickel you spend in advertising results in an actual action, not necessarily just a click to that landing page. So make it incredibly clear and engaging as to why they want to attend that event. If you're doing networking events, having things like QR codes or short links, I like Bitly for this. There's a free version that you can use that even lets you have custom URLs or links. So we're going to share a couple of short links from Bitly later, but like Bitly Busy Learning is our our customized HubSpot Academy playlist for HubSpot Hugs. So you can use this very compellingly by getting out the word. The important part to note is when you're promoting your product or your event, you need to make it very clear what the event is, what people are going to get out of it, and to be short enough so that people will actually take the action. So just give them a good reason and follow it up right away.
Alrighty, step 7, reporting. After your event, how do you know if it was a success? Some reports that you could do. Let's look at lead source, and then to your question earlier, let's look at original source too. How did they find the webinar? Knowing where someone came from, but also, how did they get to the website? Let's see if that pay-per-click is working or the social is working. Event registrations, let's look at the number of registrants to attendance. If you get on a free webinar, 50% of your registrants attend, ideally for a duration of 3/4 of it or more, you're doing really well. For paid events, even if you just charge people $5 or $10 to cover, if you're offering refreshments, if it's an in-person event or something, that's really helpful to ensure that they're actually going to go. Also, event registration or attendance broken down by source. So, for example, these are a few of the reports that we have on our dashboard. The one in the upper left is just numbers of registrants. The one that looks the same below it is broken down by original source. So you can actually, these reports took like 5 minutes to create. And it's really effective to show how everybody's getting to your pages and how they're getting to your events. Also, the lead source of event registrants, I mean, it's always the marketer wants to know where they came from so they know where to spend their time. So this is a great way of showing, just those people.
Jen, quick question on this, on reports. Does the new, the beta for the AI reporting tool, would you be able to leverage that tool to create an event report?
Oh, I'm sure you would. I don't have a lot of experience with it,
Sure.
but potentially.
Yeah.
We're not a part of that beta, so.
Sure.
I would be amiss if I didn't talk about marketing events. Marketing events in HubSpot, you can get to it by clicking on contacts, and then when you get to the contact search screen, click on the blue contacts again, and you can scroll down to marketing events. They have it hidden pretty well. Marketing events, if you have Zoom, GoToMeeting, or Microsoft Teams integrated with your HubSpot account, will automatically create from a webinar that you have in those programs an event within your system. Now, this is all you get. So it doesn't tell you a lot. You are going to be able, coming soon, to bring in marketing event information into reports, which will be great. But from those events, even if you don't require registration, it will show you how many are registered and how many attended from those webinar events. You can also associate campaigns to marketing events as well as lists. So if you want to associate all of that so you can get some campaign information, it is a decent place to go. Honestly, we don't use it a whole lot, but I thought I would be remiss if I didn't mention that was one of the features within HubSpot. Any questions on reporting?
Oh, people are getting shy now. I think we're getting into the long teeth of our event today. So as folks do come up with a few more questions, I wanted to remind folks, Jen, if you could just go to the last slide while people are asking questions. We do have the deck replay, and the workflow template that Jen mentioned before is going to be available. If you just go back to the landing page at, we try to make it as easy as possible, but marketingbusyweb.com/mar-2024-hug. That'll get you to that landing page. I think they get that in email if they registered, correct?
Yes, they will.
So I did mention the Academy playlist, bit.ly/busy-learning. Will get you our favorite playlists for HubSpot Academy. We have a little teaser into a playlist for events inside of that one. So be sure to check that out. And then, of course, we have a May Hug coming up on SMS marketing options with our friend Tim Ritchie of Message IQ. That one's going to be really, really fun. Fantastic tool that can help out a lot of engagement. And Tim is super fun to engage with and hang out with, and knows a ton about this stuff. So,
well, and one of the benefits also, if you had a program like Message IQ, you could also do reminders and everything via workflow for your events via SMS. So also an option.
Another thing, if you go to BizzyWeb.com/events, we have a lot of other things coming up, including, and importantly, we have our little BizzyWeb 25 logo. We did just turn 25 at BizzyWeb. We can rent cars as a corporation. And so we're super excited about that, and having a open house on April 3rd, a week from today. We would love to have you at our offices in Champlin if you're in the Minneapolis area. But we're going to have hors d'oeuvres and beverages and a good time if you'd like to stop by, especially to all of our Twin Cities Hug folks. We'd love to see you there. All right. So I'm not
any questions.
I'm not seeing any additional questions. The one thing that did occur to me as we were going through, Jen, is the whole event strategy is one of the things that we have a lot of conversations with our clients about. So as you said, or the first steps as we go through a event strategy for a new client, what would be either the very first thing to do, or what's the worst thing you could do in building events? Because I know we've got some great and interesting stories on both sides.
Well, the worst thing you can do is to launch without a plan.
Mhm.
Um, to just put a event up there and not have a goal with it, not have um, your CTA for after, not know what you want the clients to get out of it, and therefore to get out of you. That is the worst thing you can do.
Mhm.
The the what we coach our clients to do is just what we had kind of in one of the earlier slides. We want to make sure that you know who the audience is, because it's, depending on the event, it's probably a subset of your typical audience.
Mhm.
You want to make sure that you know how many people you want there. If it's an in-person event, that is crucially important, because you need to know how many people you can have in a room or something of that nature. Other things that we want to do is make sure that we have something compelling that they might want afterwards, right? So that we can keep them coming back for more, even just for more events from us. The nice part about, I mean, I can't tell you how many of our clients we got that have said, you know what, I saw you speak. Dave, this happens to you all the time, right? I saw
Mhm.
you speak 2 years ago, and I'm finally ready to do something. You're the first person I thought of,
Mhm.
because I've gone to some of your events. So it's a really compelling thing. It's great to establish yourself as a subject matter expert in your field. And, for things like trade shows and things like that, maybe part of the workflow, if that's more of your events that you're doing, part of the workflow probably would be people who set meetings with your salespeople while you're there. And
Mhm.
then you could remind them of those meetings. You could give them a takeaway for whatever it is you're pitching at the show. It could be that, if it's more of a trade show versus like a speaking event. So,
That actually is perfect timing, Jen, because Chris just asked any recommendations for trade show style lead gen capture tools that work well with HubSpot.
um, well, actually, my favorite thing is actually HubSpot native. The HubSpot mobile app has a business card scanner.
Perfect. Yep.
And
So,
as long as as you're getting business cards and things from a trade show, like once you're there, then you can just take pictures of those and you can automatically mark them with where you got them from, with their lead source or the event that they attended. um, for getting people to your booth prior to the show, you can always buy the list from the trade show host, and try to market out to those people. Geographically target your database. If it's in New York, look at anybody in the states surrounding, and create a list, and those are the people in your database to talk to. If it's an industry wide, the biggest event of the year, you could probably send it to everybody. Maybe that would convince them to come. So doing those things. Pay-per-click kind of works for trade show, getting people to trade shows, but it's really targeted and sometimes really expensive depending on the show.
yeah, and I think I mentioned this before too, but Bitly has a nice integration with a QR code generator. And so you could print out Bitly QR codes for free
Mhm.
and have them go to a landing page form to engage. The key with especially shows and engaging people at shows is you have to give them something compelling, either good swag or a good opportunity at something. So, don't hand out things and say, register for our newsletter. Nobody's going to do it.
Actually, one of the things you can do is you can have create a form on page, is what they call it in HubSpot, and
Mhm.
put the reset link at the bottom of it. That's one of the settings and options.
Oh, yeah.
And then as people come to your booth and talk to you about things, have them fill it out, and you can take them to a landing page, maybe with a QR code on it, or once you have their information, you can email them right away, like the information that you're trying to get out for the show.
Right. And you could run that like on an iPad or a
Yep,
tablet in kiosk mode, where
absolutely.
it's all locked down and controlled so that people can't walk away with it or start browsing and doing crazy things with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, fun.
Any other questions?
I think we're actually good for now. And